So these are really exciting times. I'll give a little story, which is that I ran a networking group in 2008. It was this group actually, and we were doing a dinner party, and I had a bunch of fund to funds, hedge fund guys, et cetera, and they were all talking about, how people were going to weather the storm of Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers, and they thought, the worst had happened already, et cetera. And so, and then we, most people, they had stayed around, drank some wine, had some cheese, and then the next day, the news about Bernie Madoff happened, and it was just a cataclysm for a year. So we're in similar times right now. But let me just give an introduction first, and then I'll introduce Scott Cheskiewicz from Jackson Walker, which has been our sponsor for many years now, and I have to thank them so much for all of their help here in Austin, which I highly recommend people visit. It's a great town. So I'm Marty Sakata. Great. All right. So Goldman Sachs, UBS, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank. I was working for Swiss Bank in Zurich, and there was another financial crisis. Long-term capital management happened. So UBS is at the bottom of it. UBS is going under, and Swiss Bank was forced to buy UBS. I went to meetings in Basel. It was crazy. And then I was part of a group that was sent back for the restructuring, et cetera, et cetera. So when I got back, I started a group of Wharton guys investing directly in private equity because I thought there'd be all kinds of opportunities, and it morphed into this family office group. So we've covered every type of, investment type, product, et cetera, and new ones and old ones. And so what's exciting is that, we've run 400 events, had 200 dinner parties. We still run events every month covering a variety of topics in different cities. There's never an end to innovation. So before I go on, I wanted to get Scott Cheskiewicz to come up here and introduce himself, introduce Jackson Walker, his practice, the firm, what it does, et cetera. So Scott, you have a minute?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Cheskiewicz, and I'm a partner here at Jackson Walker, which is a full-service law firm. I lead the institutional investor practice here, where I represent family offices, pension plans, universities, foreign governments, some state governments, some state treasury departments, et cetera, around the world, I guess. In hedge funds, private equity funds, venture funds, catastrophe bond funds, basically all alts. We also have some folks here who do swaps and things, although I don't do that personally. I don't have really any prepared remarks. I just want to welcome everyone here, and I want to give Dory and team time to talk, maybe a few extra minutes on the front end. As a shareholder of Silicon Valley Bank myself, I'm very curious as to what he has to say. So welcome all. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Scott. Super helpful. And also, just real quickly, we have events that are upcoming. We're going to be in New York on April 18th and 19th. Tim Draper's going to be headlining. And so last month, we had about 480 registrants for our New York event. We had about 460 for our Miami event with Tim Draper. So I expect to have a good turnout in New York. Then we'll be in LA. That's going to be May 3rd and 4th. San Francisco in June, and then back in New York at the end of June. Right. So, for more than a year, our group has been talking about contagion, what's going to set things off. We all thought it was going to be emerging market debt, right? I mean, we also said, well, there's a lot of emerging market dollar-denominated debt, whether it's governments or companies, and we're pulling dollars back from around the world, so they're all going to have problems paying off their debt and servicing their debt. So I was actually giving a lecture in Florida at a university there, and I was talking about, the way I work is that people just call me up all the time. Actually, Silicon Valley Bank, I had calls with them 3 weeks ago, and they were talking all about, their deal flow and SBV Capital, which I didn't even realize they had a capital arm that was co-investing in venture deals, which, seems to be a pretty heavy diversification. They also bought Boston Private Bank, which is like a long-standing private bank on the East Coast. And I also got lots of other calls from them, about how they started a family office group and they wanted to get engaged with us, et cetera. So, it's crazy how you see people diversifying heavily. But again, I was giving a lecture in Florida, and I was talking about how all these crypto companies were going under, but FTX seemed to keep on buying them all up. And I was wondering about that because last June, I had a phone call with a secondary broker, and he was telling me about all these secondaries that you get on the market. And so I said, well, what about crypto? What about FTX? And he said, well, and he said, give me 2 minutes. Oh, I just found a deal here. You can get $10 to $20 million of FTX shares for 50% discount on the secondaries market. I say, wow, that doesn't sound like a healthy company, right? So 2 days after my lecture, FTX went under. And for people who know Signature Bank, which also was folded by the Fed last night or this morning, they were a huge crypto banking company, right? So I think we've seen 3 banks fold in the last 4 or 5 days. And they're pretty significant niche players, as Dory was saying earlier. So we're really lucky to have Dory Wiley here. Dory has invested in many banks. He's also been a capital raiser in the banking space for many years. Everybody in Dallas knows who he is. And if you're not in Dallas and you're from somewhere else, you should get to know Dory because he has such a wellspring of knowledge and information.